All right, good morning, you two. How are we all feeling today? All right, ready to follow on from our lesson from last week? Some of you looking a little bit tired. That's all right. Okay, well, let's stand up and do a bit of a stretch, get the cobwebs out. Great, all look a little bit more in the zone now. All right, so who can tell me what we were discussing in our last lesson? Tom. Perfect. We were discussing identifying emotional responses. Building on that, who remembers what some of the tools we could use to identify an emotional response in ourselves or others? Sarah. Yes, fantastic. Body language. Anyone else? Right at the back, Eli. Great. Amy, did you hear Eli's response? Right, listen up because you'll miss important information if you haven't got your ears turned on. Eli, could you please repeat it for us so Amy can hear? Facial expressions. Good. Hey, is there something we can do when we recognize these responses? Some of you might struggle with reading body cues and facial expressions, but that's okay. We all do. Sometimes, no need to worry. I always do. Here's something you can do. Adam, you had an awesome response the other day when you recognized that I forgot my lunch. You thought I might have been feeling a bit upset. I had my head down, but you weren't 100% sure. So you approached me and asked me and practiced a positive strategy through actively inquiring. Do you want to let the class know what that entailed? Spot on. You told me that about the time you forgot yours and how you helped pack an extra delicious lunch the next day. That gave me excitement and gave me something to look forward to. Instantly improved my state of mind. Can we practice negative emotional responses to our own emotions and others? We can, absolutely. Be aware of this when we're undertaking activities today, as these negative responses can lead to unsafe and unsupportive environments where yours, as well as your peers' emotional well-being is a little bit low. All right, so the expectation today is to respect one another, adjusting your actions in response to how each one of you handles the activity, okay? So I want you to think about positive and negative emotional responses. All right, so these activities have been designed to challenge you and they will require teamwork. All right, so we're practicing strategies to react to emotional responses. Can we recognize positive from negative impacts and what it has on other feelings? All right, I'll write it up in big letters on the board so everyone can see. All right, perfect. So we've all got our groups. Thumbs up if you've got a group. Perfect, awesome. All right, so we've got some stations set up around the hall and we're going to move around each station after I blow my whistle. What must we treat our equipment with? Respect, that's right. Why is this? Starts with an S, the word safety, wonderful. So what might a rule be that we can come up with to maximize our safety today? Sarah? Staying in our groups area, perfect, I love that. We'll keep that as our rule throughout today's lesson. Okay, away you go, students. Okay, so while the children are moving into their activities, I wanted to highlight a specific resource that I'm currently using. It's right here, it's a microphone of sorts. And when turned on, it allows my voice to be amplified so Adam can hear me. Adam does struggle with his hearing as well as ADHD. And due to this, he does tend to struggle with identifying and practicing appropriate emotional responses that do take himself as well as others into consideration. I praised him early on to raise his confidence and get him engaged with the task at hand. Other students within the class have been diagnosed with ADHD as well, one with autism, and as a result do have trouble regulating their emotional responses, and it can be a bit of a difficult and sensitive subject for themselves. One student by the name of Peter does also need a wheelchair, so accommodations must be made for that. We do have a teacher aide in the classroom who does supervise Peter and stay with him in order to maintain a safe learning environment for himself and everyone else. So in our class discussion, I highlighted how we all do struggle at times with identifying and practicing positive emotional responses. This was done in an attempt to bring the entire class together through accepting our uniqueness. I've also outlined my expectations for the lesson and the questions they need to ask themselves throughout. This does tend to encourage a little bit of a habit of self-monitoring among students and allows them to constantly refer back to the overall goal and learning intentions of the lesson. I grouped certain students together who do tend to struggle with coordination and sports with those who are slightly higher performing And that was in order to test their collaboration skills and, I suppose, their ability to demonstrate positive emotional responses that do account for their peers' feelings. So what will enable the activity to progress effectively? So now the students have gotten back into the activities, and from here we're going to go around the hall and analyse student engagement with the learning intention. I'm looking for students to be identifying or even predicting an emotional response in themselves or others. And this is done through, I'm going to be asking students to give feedback, specifically articulating how they're feeling about the activity, what emotions are being felt, and have any of them recognize and I suppose, practiced emotional response. All right, so getting back into teacher talk. All right, I'll just stop this group here. Excellent work, Jamie. Who can tell me what Jamie has done here? Yes, absolutely. She's gotten better at scooter boarding, that's for sure. What else, though? Jamie, how did you feel when the task was a bit of a challenge at the beginning? Because I could see at the start it was definitely something that you had to get used to. Frustrated? Yeah, I can imagine. Did you identify that emotion straight away? Great, you did. Okay, well, what way did you respond to that emotion? Brilliant. You used positive self-talk and gained support from your peers to develop your skills for the rest of the lesson. That was awesome. Well done, all of you in that group there. All right, over here, Peter, I can see that some of these activities may be a bit of a struggle for you. You do seem to be mastering some of the activities, but I can see the table tennis keep you up is a bit of a challenge for you. That's all right. Well, for the next activity where a ball is juggled inside the net, where you do use your feet, I want you to use your hand for this one. So you're going to use one hand to hold the ball up and the other hand to hit the ball like that. So a bit of a pendulum. It'll come back and forth towards you. See how many times you can do that. For the other two activities, I think you can do a special job for me, actually. I need you to practice predicting how a person might be feeling based on maybe some of the words they're using or the body language that you can see. When you do this, I want you to think to yourself, is there an emotional response strategy I could use to positively affect a reaction from one of my peers? On the reverse, I then want you to start thinking, what would not be so helpful? Just have a few discussions with your teammates and see what you can come up with, and I'll come back around later and see how you're getting along with that one. All right, students, so could we all come quietly back in and sit in front of me? Just walking, please, not running. Remembering our safety and how this may create a bit of an unsafe environment for the rest of us. That certainly wouldn't be accounting for others' feelings. I love the way Charlie has come and sit down quietly and waiting for the next instruction. Brilliant. Well done, Charlie. I guess I need you to slow down, mate. You're going a little bit too fast there. You're not really thinking about your behavior and how it might impact others there. Right, I'm not very impressed with that response or that behavior, Angus, to be honest. Remember, respect does need to be given, not just to the equipment, but everyone using the equipment. Right, mate, I'd like to talk to you after class for a little bit, if that's all right. Thank you, mate. All right. How did you all feel about those activities? Challenging? Difficult? Lucy, what did you think? Frustrating? Yeah, that's a good word. Very interesting. Who felt themselves struggling with the task a little bit and as a result became a little bit emotional, became a little bit upset even? Hands up. A few of you? Yeah, absolutely. Did any of you notice anything when you felt this way? Did you notice maybe changes in your body? Adam, what about you, mate? What did you think? Great. Would you like to come up and share that idea to the class just so everyone can hear? Perfect. Thanks, mate. Come up here for a minute. So you noticed that your head went down. Yeah, perfect. And your shoulders drooped over. Yeah, magnificent. Okay, well, you really must have been in touch with your emotions there. That's really good to see, actually. So who else felt that way? Excellent. You can go sit down now, Adam. Thank you for that. If we feel this way within ourselves, how really realistic do you think it would be to say we can potentially predict how someone else might be feeling based off what we can observe of their body language, maybe even facial expressions? I'll give you a minute to think about that and discuss amongst yourselves, okay? Okay, away you go for a minute. Okay, so here we're letting the students enter into a bit of a debate with one another, Hopefully further questions and ideas will come into the discussion from here. We could see earlier that we did have a bit of a sensitive issue arising from one of our students not having the ability to participate in some of the activities due to being in a wheelchair. That was Peter there. However, as I did display, this doesn't stop the learning. It merely means adjustments just need to be made. Peter was given the opportunity to still fully engage with his group and be part of the learning. Again, it can be seen that anecdotal records are being taken to assess how the students are progressing. And that's an essential part of the lesson, as it does inform how children are staying on track and with the learning intentions that have been set. Okay, class, I've given you a while to discuss that one. What did we come up with? Any ideas? Liam, what did you come up with, mate? Perfect, fantastic. All right, Liam said, if we can see if person is struggling with an activity and starting to look a little bit frustrated, that we can practice the emotional response of understanding. And how can we do that? How can we show understanding? Sally. Perfect. Encouragement and support. Perfect. Awesome. That's really good. Liam, I have another question for you there. Building on that, do you think that this response could then affect their feelings? Of course, yeah, brilliant. It would. Absolutely. Well, from there, we can see that our reaction to a situation, either positive or negative, that's right, it can affect who? Others. Absolutely. Others. And who else? Who else can it affect? Ourselves. Yeah, definitely. Well, what are the chances of me performing the best I can if I react negatively by slouching my shoulders and dragging my feet along the ground? Pretty low, hey? Yeah, it is pretty low. What about the rest of my team? What are the chances of them doing their best if they see me acting in that manner? Hands up. No calling out, guys. Just hands up if you have an answer. Perfect. I can see Charlie's got his hand up. What do you think, Charlie? Yeah, I definitely think so too. It may bring them down a little bit too, in effect, how they then approach the task. And then it affects your team a little bit there. So what we're going to do is we're going to play a quick game of tunnel ball before we finish off. Groups 1 and 2, I'll have you on the left side, and groups 3 and 4 on the other side. We'll have 2 goes each, so 2 games each. This is not a race against one another, but it's a race against yourselves, as each group is going to be timed. All right. The first game, and this is important, so listen up here, listening ears on. The first game is going to be played silently, while the second, you guys will be playing with noise. So in that game, I want you to be practicing emotional responses, what you think are positive emotional responses in order to affect one another and hopefully get a better, quicker time than you did in the first game. So what do you think this will look like? I'm going to leave it up to you guys. Let's get into it and see what you guys can come up with, okay? Perfect. All right. Okay, students, so we've finished our game of tunnel ball. That was really great to see. Whose group performed better when there was lots of encouragement and support and positive attitudes on display? Very good. Awesome. Well, hey guys, when we do meet up for our next lesson, we're going to continue our focus on the effects of positive and negative responses. As we can see in the last game of tunnel ball, when we had lots of noise and encouragement and support in the second game, we did better as a team and individually. All right. Well, in the next lesson, we're going to be focusing in on the core theme of next week's school value, which is, who knows what the next week's school value is? Charlie, what do you think? Starts with an R. Resilience. Yeah, absolutely. You're right. Spot on, Charlie. It is resilience. Have a think about that over the next week and think about what it might mean. So first, try and understand what the word means. And then when you do come to an understanding of that thing, then think, what might that mean for our strategies? We'll go into depth with it next week, okay? Okay, perfect. Thanks, guys. Okay, so I'm just going to go through some of the resources with you guys. First off, there were 5 activities in total, meaning there were 5 groups of 4 students, an even number, so they could all be in pairs. And these are some of the resources that have been used throughout the lesson. I'll grab them for you now. For the first one was the table tennis bats and the ball, obviously, as well. And that was in pairs, and the aim of that game was to keep the ball up between each other and see how many you can get. As you can imagine, it is a bit tricky for the year twos. The second resource we did have was the cones and the balls. So that was dribbling in and out of the cones with the ball, and coming back to your teammate and passing the ball onto them and seeing how fast they could do it. Again, another one that is definitely challenging. The other activity we did have was the ball in the net on the string, which was originally designed for you hold it up. It's quite a long string when you hold it up, and you kick the ball with your feet and it'll come back like a pendulum, and you keep trying to juggle in that way and see how many you can get. Obviously for Peter, we did adjust that one, so he used his hands so he could knock it back and forth with his fist even, and see what he could do. For the other activities, we did have, of course, the scooter board. So it's a small little board, and you can go on it with your knees and use your hands to push off from the ground and see how far you can get with that. It definitely does test your balance, so it's quite difficult, that one. And lastly, we did have what I like to call the throwers and the catchers, where you have a partner and each one of you has one of these throwers or catchers, and you throw the ball back and forth to each other, trying to catch the ball in your catcher and throw it back to them. That is probably one of the hardest ones in there, and definitely tests the children's coordination and hand-eye. Right, so these challenges do definitely provoke strong emotional responses in the students, and we're looking to see how they can inform their own responses to remain positive throughout. So first, I suppose the most important thing looking at it is identify, accept the emotion, then practice our strategies from there. Great, thank you guys.